All right, everybody. Welcome, welcome. Just waiting for everybody to make it into the room. Okay, everybody. Just give you a few seconds to settle down here. My name is Adrian, and as you might know from the advertisement, I'm a professional concept artist, and I will be your host today in this webinar for Vancouver Animation School. So just before we get started, as you guys can see, there's a chat box right there. So if you guys have questions or comments or anything like that, you can kind of like YouTube or Twitch, you can type your comments in there, and you know we'll address your questions. But just know that the main part of the webinar, I'll be doing most of the talking, and then towards the end, that's when I'll be addressing some of your questions and concerns. Okay. Hello, Erica. All right, we have a good amount of people there, so let's get started. All right. So first, a little bit of an introduction about myself. Like I said, I am a professional concept artist. I have been doing this professionally for about 15 years now. Most of my experience has been in the video game industry. However, I've also had the chance to work in movies and animated TV series. And that's a great thing because the skills of a concept artist are usually transferable to other industries, such as movies and television. I originally went to school for traditional animation. That means hand-drawn animation. At the time, I wasn't even aware that there was such a thing as concept art. However, during the time when I was going to art school and studying traditional animation, 3D animation was taking over, and I ended up learning 3D animation just because that's basically what they were teaching. 2D animation was quote unquote dying at the time, and everybody was saying, well, the future is 3D, and they were right to a certain extent, because now most animated features are 3D. A lot of animated series are 3D animation. However, my love and my passion was still hand drawing things. I love sketching, I love drawing. And thankfully, that's when I discovered that there was such a thing as concept art. So now that's a great segue to begin. What is concept art? Let's first define what concept art is. So hopefully you can all see my screen at this point. And I'm just gonna type the definition here. Yes, I love 2D more than anything, but I also love 3D work, and in fact, all your 2D designs as concept artists end up as 3D designs. So we'll get to that in a second. So let's first define concept art, and let's pick another font. That's good. Okay, what is concept art? Concept art, the Wikipedia definition is the visual representation of an idea. I'll center that. What is concept art? It's the visual representation of an idea. Let's make it all caps, why not? Now, what does this mean? Visual representation of an idea. That means that concept art, it's really about designing things, creating new things. The art part of it, the drawing part of it, it's simply the language we are using to communicate that idea. So I want to make that huge distinction, because a lot of people question, okay, what is the difference between art or illustration or even graphic design and concept art? Well, concept art, it's using drawing as a means to communicate an idea. Okay, let's look at some visuals. I'll give you guys one of my favorite examples for this. What is art? right? Like what is art? Let me just move this out of the way. If somebody came to me and said, hey, can you paint my Chihuahua dog? And somebody did something like this. What is this on screen? This is a beautiful painting of a Chihuahua. I would credit the artist, but I just Googled that particular image. That is a great painting, right? It's a painting and it's a really pretty Chihuahua. Is that concept art? The answer is no. Why is this not concept art, or why would this not be considered concept art? Well, simply because that's exactly what a Chihuahua looks like. A Chihuahua already exists, so we're not creating anything new. And if you can find a photo of a particular animal or object, if it already exists, why would anybody pay you to basically draw the same thing? This is fine art, right? This is art that you hang on your wall and looks pretty, and that's great. That's art. What is illustration? Well, illustration would fall to something more along the lines of this. This is an interpretation of a Chihuahua dog, again, but this is still not concept art, again, because this is just something more that you would print out, or if it's painted on a canvas and hang it on your wall. Or perhaps you would see this on a magazine as a cover of Chihuahua World or whatever magazines feature Chihuahuas. What is concept art? Well, concept art would be something like this. I took the liberty of, this is not the drawing. This is a picture of a Chihuahua, right? This already exists. But a studio that is making a movie or a cartoon or something like that may hire a concept artist and say, hey, we want to make this movie about this crazy psycho looking Chihuahua. What does that look like? Well, it clearly wouldn't look like that, because that already exists. So the job of a concept artist would be to think up, it's like, okay, how do I reinterpret and come up with a cartoon looking Chihuahua that is going to be appealing or not appealing to the audience? So I just drew this for fun. This would be concept art, meaning taking something that, an idea, basically the idea here is Chihuahua, and your clients may give you some direction as to what they're looking for. A Chihuahua may be like, oh, we picture a Chihuahua, maybe it talks, maybe walks on 4 legs, maybe walks on 2 legs, but you know, make it crazy looking. And that's what a concept artist would do. A concept artist takes an idea that you have in your head, and obviously the language that we use to communicate our ideas is a drawing. So that's where the 2D drawing comes into play. Okay, so concept art. That's when we start getting into the specifics of concept art, because I can understand how someone would get confused between, hey, an illustration or a painting and concept art. Concept art is really more about your imagination than anything else. Let's look at a few other examples. For example, say somebody wants to hire you because they're going to start, they want to create a video game where you pilot this gigantic robots. Okay, gigantic robots, they don't exist, you know. They cannot go outside and take a picture of a giant robot. Maybe in a theme park they may have them, but those belong to somebody already. Somebody wants to hire you and say, they picture these massive robots with giant guns, and you're going to pilot them, and you're going to be shooting things, and it's going to be a really fun game. Well, the job of a concept artist, once again, is to come up with something that doesn't exist. Take your clients' ideas, rough ideas, and start shaping them, right? You know, that's what they're hiring you for. They're hiring you, a concept artist. Your most valuable asset as a concept artist is your imagination. And because if you can think it, then you can draw it. But obviously you have to have that ability to draw. You have to have that ability to transfer the ideas you have in your mind onto a canvas, in this case digitally. So that is that is really what can make you a really great concept artist. Is that combination of a great imagination and the ability to draw and paint, which is part of what you would be learning in programs such as this one, the concept art program at Vancouver Animation School. You learn the principles of, drawing. I know some of these drawings may look complex, may look like, oh, I don't even know where to begin. Well, usually we tend to see this. We tend to see the final product, but to get there, there's so much work and steps that go into something like this. If I showed you guys, this is how this particular design got started, basically with a scribble. And then obviously through shading and doing pass after pass after pass of detailing and more detailing and more detailing until you get to coloring. And anyway, there's many steps that goes into creating a piece of artwork, and that's sort of like what the concept of that you learn how to do. More examples, okay, of concept art. Concept art, maybe you like drawing comic books, right? So you draw a really cool character. Okay, so whether you use pencil and paper or digitally, you draw a character. That is not enough. With concept art, it's not just about drawing something once and say, hey, here's the design, thank you very much, I'm going home. No. You have the design. After a few rounds of changing it and tweaking it, and when everybody's happy, you may have to show a color composition of that character. Because okay, I have the main idea, let's color the character. Okay, so now you have a theme here. You have some sort of jungle man. But before that, before you got to that final product, you need to explore different ideas. Let me see if I can fit all of this on screen at the same time. Obviously, my space is limited here with my screen. This is what a concept artist does, part of character development. It's not just coming up with one really cool drawing and saying, hey, that's great. Usually what you need to do is come up with a few different ideas. Perhaps your art director or your boss, whoever hired you, says, hey, we need this character, and it's this big guy who lives in the jungle. Okay, what does he look like? That's your job. Your job is to use your imagination and come up with different variations. Maybe he has long hair, maybe he has no hair, maybe he has a hood on, maybe he has a loincloth, maybe he has boots, maybe he has tiger-looking boots. All these different ideas, you have to translate them into drawings, present them, and then they usually pick something. They pick one, and then then you have your final character. But furthermore, once this is all done, we were talking about 2D versus 3D. Most designs these days, most concept work is done so that 3D modelers, people can model them in 3D in the computer. So you also have to do more technical drawings. In the case of a character, okay, this is what a character looks like from the front, from the side, from the back. Oftentimes you may have to do, these are called turnarounds, where you actually have to show what your idea of a character looks like. It's, from various angles. Usually the usual is just front, side, and back, but oftentimes they might need a 3/4 view, a back 3/4 view, all of these things. The same goes for other objects, because it's not just about drawing characters. A concept artist, you have to be able to design anything they ask you for. What do I mean by anything? Hey, what if they need a motorcycle, that transforms or something like that, just a vehicle of some sort. You have to come up with, what does the vehicle look like? You have to know how to draw that vehicle. And the principles of all this is the kind of stuff that you learn. You will be learning the fact that it doesn't matter what the topic is. It doesn't matter if you're drawing a character a vehicle, a background. It's all, the principles are all the same. It's all about design. It's all about shapes. And when you think about it, it's all lines at the end of the day. So for example, if I need to draw a background, such as this, we have things like perspective, learning how to draw things in proper perspective so that it doesn't look wonky, it doesn't look off, it actually looks realistic in that sense. Those are all the things that you learn. But one thing that I do want to point out is that it doesn't matter, especially when you don't know necessarily how to draw something. When you go, oh, no, I can't draw a motorcycle. I don't know how to draw a motorcycle, or I don't know how to draw a background. Notice that there really isn't much difference between all these three images. And what do I mean by that? I mean the difference between this and this. These are lines. These are lines on a piece of paper. So if you can draw this line, I'm sure you can draw this line, and I'm sure you can draw this line, and I'm sure you can draw a line like this. And if you put them all together in different configurations, you get different results, right? So don't limit yourself to, hey, I can only draw characters, or I can only draw cartoons, or I can, no. If you can draw a line, basically you can turn those lines into anything. So, and that's what makes a concept artist a valuable asset to a studio, meaning that you can design anything they throw at you. Think about the last video game you played. It's not just characters. There's worlds, there's vehicles, there's guns, there's collectibles, there's all kinds of art that is needed in those projects. And guess who gets to design that? Us, concept artists. Okay? Exactly. Don't limit your imagination. And I can keep showing you a plethora of designs that go from, I don't know why the artwork keeps opening, and close this. Again, think of, and this is honestly, this is the part that I love about this job. It's using your imagination, whether you need to draw a spaceship or a space cadet or a creature from the Black Lagoon or whatever you need to design. It's all in your imagination. So in this program, this is the kind of stuff that you learn, how to take your basic idea from your mind onto a sketch, and then refine that sketch, color that sketch, render that sketch, add textures to that sketch. Taking a drawing from basically a blank piece of paper to a finished piece. That's the kind of stuff that you learn throughout the program. Let me address. How are we doing for time there? Okay, I think we're doing great. I had a list of questions that some of the people that signed up for the webinar. I have some questions here, and I would love to address them now since we have time. And if you guys have more questions and stuff like that, please, by all means, type them up, and we'll address them as we go. Okay. Someone asked, what are the industry expectations? Okay, so for concept artists, what are the industry expectations, and what art styles do we need to improve as concept artists? As far as industry expectations, I mean, that's a very broad question, but obviously they expect somebody who's prepared. Just like I was talking about, if you apply for a job, most studios will expect you to know, first of all, know how to draw properly, because again, you can have a great idea, but if you can't draw it, then that's going to be a problem. So, have a good working knowledge of art, being able to draw and paint your ideas. That's one expectation. If you're fresh out of school, they don't expect you to be, the most amazing artist the world has ever seen. That's not the case. All studios hire all different levels of expertise. In the case of new students or somebody who just graduated school, you'd be considered a junior. And they don't expect a junior to produce the same type of work or quality of work or even the amount of work that a senior artist produces. So don't worry about that, as long, what what the industry expects from a junior designer is usually potential. You know, when they look at your work, they go like, this person works really hard. The quality of their work is good, but we see that this person is going to evolve to be a fantastic artist. So that's usually what they look for. But in terms of art styles, because I get that question a lot, what is art style, or what is a style? Style means that, hey, should I be drawing cartoon-looking animals like this, or should I be drawing more realistic-looking characters? Like this. This is just some... I had just watched a Star Wars movie, so I felt like doing a made-up Star Wars character. Okay, let me just put it like this. Clearly, this guy and this Sith character, they do not belong in the same universe, right? Like, they're very completely different characters, completely different art styles. I drew both of these. So in terms of, hey, what style should I be improving? Usually you make yourself more employable if you can draw in different styles. If you can draw cartoon-looking things, if you can draw comic book-looking things, if you can draw more realistic things, that's the ideal scenario. However, think about this. Let me just... If you get a job, or if you're trying to look for a job at Nickelodeon, and they hire you for... I'm just Googling an image. Oh, come on. Oh, it's weird. I'll just drag my entire... If you're looking for a job to work for making SpongeBob SquarePants cartoons, looking at that, do you think they expect you to draw and paint like characters like this? No, right? So a portfolio that has very realistic looking characters, you're not likely to get a job at Nickelodeon. They're going to look for people that are drawing cartoons more like this. So what that tells you is that the style that you draw, it should really be what you're passionate about. If you are quote unquote bad at, say, maybe drawing more realistic things, it's not your thing, that's okay. Get really good at drawing cartoons then. Or the other way around. Maybe cartoons are not your thing and you prefer like more realistic things. You want to work on a Dark Souls video game, or those games that are more realistic, or Resident Evil, just stuff that it's a Call of Duty, those games. If you like that stuff, then get focus on getting better at drawing more realistic styles. So there is the point that I'm making is that there is no one style that you should be focusing on, that, oh, this is the one style that everybody's looking for. No, different studios, different companies, they're looking for different things. Just the same way when you turn on Netflix, you see, oh, there's action, there's drama, there's horror, there's funny cartoons, there's anime, there's realistic cartoons, there's all these different genres. So that means there's work for everybody, right? So it's good news. So there is no one style that it's a magical style that appeals to everybody. So it really is about what you like. Because if you like it, you're going to be more passionate about it, and you're going to do a better job. Someone says, I would like to just get an idea of what the program will prepare me for in terms of employment. What kind of jobs can I get? And if possible, pay range on those jobs. I would like to know the difference between graphic design in this program. Okay, I kind of covered already that. Yeah, graphic design and concept art, they're very different. You can transfer skills. Obviously, if you have artistic skills, you can do, if you're a concept artist, you can probably design a logo. I've seen a lot of times graphic designers may not necessarily have or haven't developed the ability to draw figures or vehicles and that kind of stuff. But graphic design is a completely different branch of art, I would say. But anyways, the main question is, How will the program prepare you? Well, like I mentioned, in the 4 terms, you start with the basics. I should give you a visual for this. Where's my mouse? We start with the, all the basics. Term 1. Actually, you guys can see the curriculum there, so I'll just glance over it. But term 1 is all about the basics. Getting perspective and starting to draw in more in 3 dimensions, right? Like all the basics. Then you go term 2. We start getting more heavy on character design. And this covers, when I say characters, this covers everything from how to properly draw just a human to begin with. But then how to design the human, how to create, cool costumes and all that, on your characters. Characters, not just humans, but you get to design creatures, how to color those creatures, how to, add textures to those creatures. All of that is encompassed in character design. The same goes for environment design. Environments are basically the worlds in which your characters live in. And then you go into by term 3, this is actually term 3, there's more character design, and then there's vehicle design. So you can see that in each term, like slowly you evolve as an artist. You start with the basics, and you start designing characters, and things get more complex and more complex until term 4, where the entire term is dedicated to portfolio. Development. So you have an entire term, not just on your own, obviously the teachers are there to help you and give you feedback and all that stuff. You had an entire term to develop your portfolio. What is your portfolio? Your portfolio is basically what gets you a job interview in the end. It's your very best work. That's what a portfolio is. And I think I saw somebody, base portfolio requirements, Martina. It's in a way, I mean, I'll simplify it. I can talk for an hour about portfolio development, but just like I've been showing, think of your portfolio as a brochure of your best art skills. So your portfolio should only have your absolute best work. Nothing mediocre, nothing that, hey, I drew this 5 years ago and it's not as good anymore, but I just want you to show you how much I've improved. That doesn't matter for a portfolio. Your portfolio is your absolute best work, and think of it as, like I said, as a brochure for your best abilities. So ideally, a portfolio would show character design, environment design, and vehicles, and perhaps props. So an ideal portfolio would show, like I said, hey, I can draw really cool characters. I can do turnarounds of those characters. I can draw backgrounds, and I can draw vehicles. Obviously, more than one per topic, but just your variety of work. You can show sketches, obviously fully colored renders too. Just that variety. That, I would say, those are the basic requirements for a portfolio. Keep moving on. This is an important question. Somebody asked if this program is fully online or if you need to attend, a classroom somewhere. The school is 100% online, so it doesn't matter where you are. You can attend the classes as long as you have an internet connection and your computer. That's all you need. So yes, it is online. Doesn't matter where you are. You don't have to be in Vancouver. So that was a question. What is the difference between illustration, game design, concept art? I think I already covered it. Okay, somebody asked, I'm interested in concept art. However, I like digital matte painting. Which program would be best to fit for me? Well, only you can answer that question. I would need to see your work and all that, because digital matte painting and concept art, even though they're both, again, you get to paint on both programs, they are quite different. I would say if you want to work in movies, um, perhaps digital matte painting, that there's a lot more work. In fact, there's no matte painting per se in games, in say like video games, or um, even in 2D animation. It's more, it's not really matte painting that you see. So matte painting is more if you want to work in live action movies, most of the work is done in that way. So if that's where your passion is, I would say digital matte painting. If you're more prone to work on video games, animated cartoons and stuff like that, then concept art would be more your thing. Um, are there more job opportunities in concept art or 2D animation? Well, depends how you view it. Uh, if you mean hand-drawn 2D animation, there's still some series and movies being done. Not as many as before. Most stuff is done in 3D, to be honest. But there's still quite a bit of work in 2D animation. In my opinion, I guess it depends on what part of the world you're in. For example, Japan. Japan's still doing tons of anime, so there's still tons of work there for 2D animation. As far as, let's just say, a city as like Vancouver, how much 2D animation stuff is being done? There's some stuff, but not that much. I would say there's probably more jobs as concept artists than 2D animation uh, in this city. So it depends on what part of the world you're talking about. 2D animation, they say it's a dying art. I don't think it will die per se. There's always going to be some 2D animation, but this is how I would put it. Let's just say there's 2D animation. Maybe right now there's like 500 projects going worldwide, right? Let's just say, I'm not saying that's exactly it, but let's just say 2D animation. That means, okay, there's 500 potential places or projects that you could be working on. However, as a concept artist, you could work on 2D animation, 3D animation, video games, movies, TV shows, apps. All of these need concept art, right? Because it could be a 2D animated movie, they need concept art. It could be a 3D animated movie, they still need concept art before they start modeling and creating everything in 3D. Video games, they absolutely need concept art. Movies, not every, a romantic comedy probably doesn't need concept art, but most, think of the Avengers, think of, all these special effects in those movies, or sci-fi movies that have spaceships and all kinds of aliens and things like that. They need concept artists. TV, by TV I mean animated series. They need concept artists. Apps on your phone. A lot of apps, they have cartoon-looking characters. All of that need concept art. So this is my personal opinion, there's probably a lot more work or a lot more opportunity doing concept work than 2D animation. Because if you add all of these up, there's probably like 10,000 projects going right now in the world, or more or less. I don't know exactly the exact number, but you see what I mean. So 2D animation is a very specific thing. Concept artists, we can work in many different industries, which is awesome. Which site do you recommend to create? Oh, you create the portfolio, not the website. You mentioned ArtStation. ArtStation is a great place to showcase work, but there's a lot of amazing artists there, right? So how are you going to stand out? I guess it's a question of, do you want to be a big fish in a small pond, or a small fish in a big pond? Yes, some people do get work out of ArtStation and all that, but just imagine this. You have your work there, but next to your work, there's the work of other amazing artists that may be just as good as you are. There may be artists that have more experience, so they're a little bit more advanced than you are right now. So in my opinion, websites like that, websites where it's just full of artists, is like, why? Just think about it this way. Say you want to open a restaurant, and you want to open a restaurant on a street where there's 20 other restaurants. Imagine these are all restaurants. Your chances of standing out, you have a lot of competition there, right? If that's your restaurant, it's like, why would you put a restaurant on a street where there's already 20 restaurants? I would be more clever and try to think like, hey, there's the top of a mountain, and during summertime, a lot of people hike over this mountain. Maybe I should open a little restaurant at the top of that mountain, because there's no one else that is selling food right there. So that's how I view places like ours. It's good to have your work, good to have visibility like that. But I would actually recommend, I mean, it feels a little early to be talking portfolio development, but I would just have my own website, you know, www.myart.com. It's not an actual website, but you know what I mean. Like, that way, when I send applications to studios, they only come to my website. They can only see my work. They're not going to be clicking away and looking at other people's work, right? So I would, and for that, there's so many places. Like there's Squarespace, or this is not a sponsored video, by the way, Squarespace or Weebly or Wix, or, you know, there's so many places. I don't think there's a bad one. But that's what I would recommend. Just have my own website rather than putting my work next to everybody else's work. Is there any so concept art, I'm just reading the text chat box there, guys. So if you have questions, this would be the good time to ask, because we still have time, but not too much time left. So concept art has its characteristic, like there are some stories. I'm not quite understanding that question. I don't know if you want to rephrase it. But I think, well, let me interpret it. I think you mean in concept art, do we just draw like out of nowhere, or do we get like a specific story and based on that story? The answer is yes. There, I will give you an example. You come to work and it's like, okay, what am I designing today? A lot of times you get a written description. So let's just, I don't like that font. That font is so, let's just go for traditional. There we go. So say you might get a director or a producer, somebody sends you, it's like, hey, we need to design a background. It's like, we need a design of an old barn at nighttime that shows that someone is working inside. Sometimes you may get something as simple as a sentence. Maybe it's part of a script, if it's a movie or if it's a TV show. There's a scene where we see the shot of an old barn and it's nighttime, and someone is working inside. Well, with that description, and I mean, I wrote this because I already have this piece, but the description was something like that. This is what I came up with. It's like, okay, it's a cartoon, so obviously it's not very realistic looking, but it's nighttime. It's an old barn. It's all, all the windows have been boarded up because somebody's working inside in something mysterious. And how do you show that somebody's inside? Well, there's a light. Could be an actual electrical light, or maybe it's an oil lamp. Who knows? But there's light coming inside, so that makes you go like, "Ooh, what's happening inside?" And the fact that there's a sign that says "Keep out," that tells you that, oh, I'm not welcome here, but there must be something important happening here. That is very common with concept art. That you get a written description, and then whatever you picture in your mind, that's what you have to draw, right? So let's see if I have another example here. I do want to make a big distinction. Okay, so this is concept art. Concept art is reading something, coming up with something new. If you do this, or this, Is this concept art? The answer is no. Why? Because Batman already exists. Venom already exists. It may be your own take on the character. Maybe you like to draw it, but the character has already been designed. It's not your design. This is fan art. This is what this is, right? Yeah, they're cool drawings and all that, or you can make cool drawings, but it's not original. It's not your design. It's not your character. Unless it's a very interesting take on the character, then okay, you might consider that concept art. But my point being, concept art is usually designing brand new things that haven't been created, which is what I like about it, that I'm not necessarily drawing stuff that has already been done. Okay, so when you're designing your own stuff, you may get hired to work like I was for a Spider-Man game or a Captain America game or Punch Out or Transformers. Yes, you may get hired for existing franchises, but in your portfolio, the work that you should be developing is your own original characters, right? Like this guy here, he's just made up from imagination. Doesn't belong to any particular franchise or anything like that. Just original characters. Get into the habit of designing original characters. Well, okay. Being original almost impossible. Yes. What I mean by original is that you're not designing. Is this original? No, because I didn't invent the Ninja Turtles. I like drawing the Ninja Turtles. I love the Ninja Turtles, but this is not original. However, by original I mean that they're your own creations. Everything that you create, though, is based off of something you saw somewhere else. So yes, there's no such thing as, oh, I'm gonna draw something that the world has never seen before. No, of course not. Every design you create will look like something else that has already been created. But what I mean by original is that you're not purposely trying to make it look like an existing franchise, right? Like drawing Dragon Ball characters, that's cool, that's fun, but you didn't invent Dragon Ball, so that's not original in that sense. That's what I meant. Okay, any more questions? Because we are, what do you say, Erica or Calvin? Are we nearing the end? I'll be happy to answer more questions. I mean, there's obviously a lot to cover, but in terms of, I can tell you guys from experience. Like I said, this usually comes up. Is this a hobby or is this a career? Is this a gig? Should I get a job at McDonald's and do concept art on the side? This is a career. I've been doing this for a living for 15 years. That's how I pay my mortgage. That's how I pay for my food, my clothes, all the ridiculous trinkets I have behind me. I pay for those things working as a concept artist. So it is a career. You can make a good living being a concept artist. If you want to have a fleet of Ferraris outside of your house, maybe you rather start your own studio. If you want to make gazillions of dollars, that's the way to go. But still, I get to draw for a living, and it's very rewarding. It's a lot of fun. It's work, just like anything else. I have to wake up every morning, go to a studio, and draw for 8 or 9 hours a day, at least 5 days a week, and come home and watch movies and play games so that I feed my imagination. But compared to other jobs, I love it. So it's very much a rewarding career. So that's one thing that I do want to mention. Anyway, okay, one last question. So let's do a first come, first serve. Or if it's a quick question, maybe two more, and we'll be... For any more information regarding the program and the actual schedule and all that stuff, you guys can go to VANAS.com, Vancouver Animation School, and all the information on cost and when the term starts and all of that stuff will be there. There you go. Alina just shared the link. I'm just trying to think if there's any other common things. one other thing that I should say is if you have a dream of working just like I did, working in games, working in movies, and all that, it it takes work. It only takes work, and it takes a lot of practice. But if it's a dream, my gosh, I just make it happen. You will be very happy with yourself. That you actually set out a goal and try to make it happen, and then when it actually happens, maybe when you're graduating from school, maybe when your very first job, when you get hired, the first time a project you worked on gets published, that first time when you're holding something that you worked on for a year, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, however long it took you, that first time that you hold that, it's that feeling. That's when all those hours that you spend drawing on a table, or on with your computer equipment, all those hours that you spend practicing, that's really when it hits you in a very positive way. Plus you get paid, so that's really good too. Can you work at home? Really great question. The answer is yes. It's not, it's difficult to find constant work, but yes, you can. That's a short answer. Would I recommend working from home? I've done it myself. In fact, I worked on a Marvel movie, an animated movie, and I did it all from home, all through email. I would email my designs, they would send back feedback. I did it all from home. I personally would recommend you, if you have the option to work at a studio, working at a studio feels better just because you're surrounded by other people, you're surrounded by other artists, you learn from other artists, getting feedback, it's easier. So the experience of working like physically with other people, it's great. And if you have some studio experience, it's easier to get work working from home. However, if you happen to be in a city or a town where there aren't a lot of studios, or maybe there are no studios whatsoever, and you don't want to moving is not an option for some reason, you can, thanks to the internet, you can work from home. Like I said, I've done it, so I know other concept artists that have done it. I know one concept artist that lives in Victoria. He's amazing, and he works for clients in different parts of the world. I know a guy who lives in China and works for studios in Los Angeles. Me, well, I do have a work at a studio, but I have clients in different parts of the world too. So yes, you can. Yeah, that's about it. So unless there's any last questions, I think that covers just about everything. But yeah, basically, what it comes down to is you get paid to draw, and that's really an amazing thing. And I don't see the industry slowing down anytime soon. In fact, thanks to this little guy's phones, how many apps do you see coming out every single day? Like, there's so much work. There's more work now than ever before. Before, it used to be what, Disney, and that's it. Now there's so many studios, so many industries, which is awesome. So thanks everybody. If, like I said, if you guys are interested in this as a career, obviously Vancouver Animation School is an option, the best option. But my advice to you, unbiased, just as an artist, independently as an artist, is make it happen. Or at least give it a try. Maybe it's not for you, but how are you going to discover that unless you try it? So give it a try. If some of you are unsure, Vancouver Animation School also offers introductory programs. That means you just do 4 sessions, and it gives you an introduction to the big program. So it's very low risk. If it's not for you, good. You don't have to waste an entire year or pay an entire year. But if it is for you, that's what's going to give you an insight as to whether it's the kind of program for you. If learning online, which is super handy and super awesome. So there's options there. So check it out. hope to see some of you in the school. I'm a teacher in the school, by the way, in case I didn't mention it. But it's not just me, obviously. There's different concept art teachers. Every term you get a different teacher, so you get different perspectives, different advice, plus all the pre-recorded lectures from all kinds of different artists that have won Emmys for the design, artists from Disney, artists from Weta, artists from all the major studios are out there, and you get to learn directly from them. So it's a lot of value right there, and from me too. Thanks so much, everybody. Like I said, I hope to see you. If I don't see you in school, that's okay, but maybe I'll see you in the industry in a few years. And that nothing makes me happier than when my students graduate and actually get jobs and they grow as artists. I've been teaching since 2011, so a lot of my students have now, not only have they gotten jobs, they've already gotten jobs, projects published. And I had one of my very first students, she's working at Microsoft, and she's already made a couple of Xbox games. And I'm like, I'm getting old. Anyways, thanks so much, everybody. Hope you have a fantastic weekend. And if you're not having a fantastic weekend, just start drawing for fun. And that's the best way to learn.